Welcome to Jar of Genius. I'm your host, Russ Perry, and this is a podcast where we dive into the business of creativity. Each episode, I'll explore the minds and stories of innovative leaders and companies who have paved the way and are shaping the future for creative businesses around the world. From groundbreaking business models to extraordinary creative campaigns and the innovations of technology we use and will use ahead, I'm excited to help you not only run a creative business, but thrive in this ever-changing and always challenging landscape. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Jar of Genius. And I'm really excited here today to talk to someone who has lived two very different lives in his professional career. And this is Roger Martin. Roger, thank you so much for being here today. I don't know what brand to introduce you with. Is it RockBox? Is it Infrared? Is it your holding company, Thrive? Like, what do you normally represent?
Sure. I'm usually head janitor, if that's what's needed. But really, I'm the co-founder of a couple different national franchise brands, but I am the CEO of RockBox. So my main day job is being the CEO of RockBox Fitness.
Which sometimes, if you're like me, also includes taking out the trash. So you always gotta do that.
100%, whatever it takes.
Awesome. Well, Roger, thanks so much again for being here. And we will definitely get into the present day duties of you and at RockBox. But my first place I want to start is going back, quite some time to your career in pharma. You spent at least more than a decade in that space, approaching that from a lot of different angles. And I've studied pharma. It's, from a creative standpoint, it's one of the largest advertising industries in the world. It's extremely impactful in many positive ways today. We see like weight loss drugs and all this crazy stuff coming out that are helping people. But you were in this space. And then at some point, you're like, you know what? I'm going a different direction. Let's pick up the story at that point. Like, what was going on in your life where you thought about taking your life just kind of this other path away from what you had known professionally and what you had been really successful at?
Yeah, I spent 2.5 decades in that industry. So 25 years in pharma. I started right out of undergraduate school and started as a sales rep and worked my way up to a chief operating officer and worked for publicly traded companies, privately held companies. And, Russ, honestly, the real story is I was a chief operating officer for a privately held pharma company. And I was at a convention in Barcelona, Spain. And I looked out, I'm in my sharp suit there and, hawking our wares, if you will. But I'm in Barcelona, Spain on a full expense account, should be the happiest guy in the world, making a tremendous salary and by all check boxes had checked all the success boxes as they're defined in our country, which we can argue about that later. But I looked out across the sea of faceless names and I had disdain for 3 or 4,000 people in this convention hall for about, half a second. And then I realized it's not them. It's me.
Right.
It's me. I'm miserable. I am so grateful and thankful for what corporate America taught me. And I was able to build my sales and leadership chops and marketing chops. And I gave them a hell of a return on their investment in me. But I had gotten to the point where I was helping build other people's wealth. And I was, representing a company that I didn't love, to be quite frank. And it was all manifesting in me being an unhappy person. Like, at my core, I was not happy with where my life was going, even though I had checked all those little tick marks on what was supposed to be, yeah, you're successful now. And I realized because I wasn't fulfilling my calling. I wasn't fulfilling what I really love. And I was making a lot of money. And we were, we had drugs that really help people. And again, that industry gets a really bad rap, but it also does some really good things too.
Totally.
But yeah, it was that epiphany. And within 4 months, I dropped the mic on corporate America on a Friday. I had a multi 6-figure salary, health benefits, stock options, the whole thing. I woke up on a Monday after I'd made a succession plan and all that. But, when I left and woke up on a Monday with no salary, no health benefits, no stock options. And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, what did I do? What did I just do? But it was a necessary turn for me.
So I have a question before we get to what that turn was.
Yeah.
You had to be fulfilling something. And I don't think in these decisions, you don't spend 2.5 decades going down a path if it wasn't trying to accomplish some goal or outcome. What do you think that drive came from? Was it what you had learned from your family? Was it stubbornness? Was it You love nice things. Like, where did that origination of that career come from that all of a sudden you woke up one day to say, you know what, this isn't really what it's about?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. So I would say that, I have a bigger, and I think most entrepreneurs have a bigger fear of failure than they do seeking, achievement. Now, I'm definitely, when I take the strengths finder, like achievement is one of my top things. And I've always been like that. But I have to tell you that I would love to, I wish I could tell you, I was a 3-letter athlete. I wasn't, I was mediocre at sports. I love sports, but I was mediocre at them and wasn't super coordinated. I loved rock and roll more. I loved playing music more than I did sports. But I think that drive to achieve, you know, childhood, pretty critical father. And, I love him to death, but he was pretty critical. And it, I think, taught me that I always need to overachieve. And so I'm sure there's a chip on my shoulder somewhere from I'm going to prove everyone wrong and I'm going to, achieve. And I think, again, most entrepreneurs you'll find have a touch of narcissism in them. And I would be no different, because we're saying to the world, you know, you're good, but I could do this better. Like, we're literally telling the world, I think I can do this better than anybody else, or I wouldn't be doing it. And that fear of failure and, wanting to prove that I can achieve the next thing definitely drove me through my career. I loved getting more responsibility. So yes, I started as a sales rep, but I thought, how fast can I get to district manager? When I get to district manager, how fast can I get to regional manager? When I get to regional, the national, the VP to a C level. And, I was chasing that next opportunity and bigger paycheck, which is not long-term rewarding. I did go through my little, I like nice things phase, but that really wasn't driving me. It wasn't like I need a bigger house and a nicer car. When I could afford those things, I did enjoy them. But then I realized that that doesn't make you happy either. You have to really love what you do. A man or a woman needs a purpose every morning. They have to be able to get up and say, the world needs me some way. Whatever that individual, unique way the world needs you, that's what you have to have that, or why are you waking up? And I just found that running a pharma company wasn't the thing I wanted to do.
I mean, I can say that there's probably been trillions of dollars of innovation and wealth created stemmed from entrepreneurs and their troubled parent relationships. So, mine being one of them as well. So it's, good a lot, but now you're on a different path. So let's go back then to that day. And I have to just kind of ask the obvious question. I do think I have to say that there is a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of great things in biosciences and pharmaceutical technology. But I will say, going from take these drugs to feel better or accomplish your goals to wake up and work hard and come do kickboxing to accomplish your goals is probably the farthest philosophy of giving better as you can probably think of. I mean, assuming both companies want that outcome. So, had you had already landed on this, or was this something that was already in motion as you were thinking about this next chapter? And why were you so driven to this much different, more wellness, natural approach to life and to growth and to healing and what you were going to sell, what you were going to promote, and the brands you were going to create?
Yeah, because I believe in it more. I've always believed in health and fitness. And while I joked, I wasn't a great athlete, I've worked out and, lifted weights and done cardio and running or whatever it is since I was 14 or 15. I mean, I vividly remember going, at 16, my buddies and I would go to the local health club to work out. Like, I've always had fitness as part of my life. Funny, I mentioned my father earlier, and he, for almost my entire life, was very overweight. Finally, now he's almost 80 and he's gotten his weight down to a very manageable, he took him a long time, but he's finally got it to a manageable number. But I saw that too. And I'm like, I don't want to become that. And, some of this is in our genes. And if we don't watch it, we can follow that same path. But I've always believed more in health, wellness, preventative care. And I think when I was in pharma, what I saw was, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people that are sick that don't need to be sick. Now, there are diseases that people contract, and sometimes they're congenital, and and that, thank God for the medicines. But so much of and this is true. I mean, I'm kind of going off down a rabbit hole, but I can tell you, like, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they're just building everywhere. Like most cities, they're building. But man, about half of the retail centers building, I go by, they're not a retail center. I see when it finally goes up, it's another medical office.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just one after the other, medical office after medical office. And I'm just thinking, my gosh, we have a sick population. and they're not getting any healthier regardless of the medicine. So we know that eating clean, that exercising and moving your body in whatever form you choose to do that in, and just good mental health practices, that's how you live a healthy life.
Right.
Don't get sick and then take pills and then just get on that mad carousel wheel, or carousel.
I mean, we could probably take this podcast in a whole different direction on the reverse incentives of insurance companies and pharmaceuticals in general, but let's stick to the brand here of creative. So you believe in creativity. First, you believe in creativity. We'll get to that in a minute, but you believe in wellness. You believe in fitness, something that it's for you. You mentioned not taking risk. I know for a fact starting your own business is very risky. Starting a franchise is very risky. It only really works at scale and really to make that impact. So, how come you decided, hey, I'm in this cush life experience job in Barcelona, going to see, trying to think of the big cathedrals they have out there, seeing all that cool stuff, having tapas. And now I'm not just doing something different in terms of my professional experience, I'm completely starting something new and starting it from scratch. So, where did that crazy idea come from? And like, what was the driving force inside of this? Was it, I don't want to lead your answer, but like, were you just so well prepared of the systems of business at this point that it wasn't a risk, or was there something else pushing you down this path?
I don't know if it's like having kids, getting married. Like, you're never ready, right?
Yeah. You read a lot of books, you took a breathing class, and you were ready. You thought you were ready to have a business baby.
Exactly. And I think what I did have and was lower risk for me was I had the leadership skills. I had managed teams as large as 500. So, managing a small team was going to be easy peasy. I've been trained in competency selection interviewing, which is, I should be mandatorily taught in schools so that people know how to find the right people when they start creating teams. And my persuasion, influence, and marketing. So I had like all those core skill sets that honestly, I don't envy that 22-year-old kid or even, 19-year-old kid that's like just jumping into business, because they haven't seasoned their leadership skills. They haven't seasoned their persuasion influence skills. And, God bless them for the ones that are successful. But I really think that entrepreneurship is something that, if you can delay that itch, to scratch that itch and continue to learn on someone else's dime while giving them a great return on their investment in you, on your salary, you're going to be better prepared. So the short answer to your question is, I felt super prepared as a business person, but I'd never kept books, right? Because I had a finance team to always do that. And I had never done many things that, when you're an entrepreneur, you do yourself and you learn. But that is the beauty of today's environment, where if you don't understand something, Google is, at your fingertips, and so is YouTube, and you can learn it.
Yeah.
You have to put in the effort, but you can learn it. And I loved that steep learning curve, that 90-degree learning curve. I thrive on that. And I find myself seeking that out in different parts of business. But there was a financial risk, of course, a big financial risk. But I had gotten myself to the point financially that I could swing and miss. And if I missed, it would hurt really badly, but I'd be okay. And my family would have been okay. And I know not everybody has that luxury. I had that luxury, but it was, make no mistake, it was my money. It was, my checking account and real dollar after tax dollars that I had saved and saved and saved. And I had been through a divorce like 5 years before I became an entrepreneur. So, had to rebuild after that too. But I realized, you'll never have enough. So if anybody's listening and they're thinking, well, if I just get to 1 million or 10 million, I can tell you it doesn't happen, because there's always another number. You have to love what you do.
Well, two things I want to touch on. I mean, like, one, I could imagine the ending of your marriage 5 years before this had to be interrelated to your unhappiness of where you were at professionally, because you weren't in alignment with those things. I mean, there's always many, many reasons, but for me, my unhappiness when I was in my previous business, led me to, alcohol and drinking. And, I've been sober over a decade now, but we become, it's hard to take on life if we're not in that alignment lane of what we believe and what we want to have and who we are. The other thing I want to mention, and pulling us kind of into the present and really getting in the story of RockBox, is, most people don't realize that pharma is one of the most advanced, sophisticated marketing branding organizations in the world. They are crazy amazing at it, because really in many countries, even harder than America, the only way that they can succeed if people know about it and ask for it. And that's like marketing 101. So I could only imagine you have like ninja skills coming into this space with, marketing, branding, advertising, but you have like an eyedrop budget of resources relative to what you were used to. It's like, all the things you need to know, and you have like absolutely none of the tools or power or research teams or anything that you used to have. So you mentioned music.
Yeah,
Let's talk about this.
sure.
Top band, top concert you've ever been to. Quickly, what is it?
I saw in 1989.
Doesn't have to be the same thing either.
Yeah, no, in 1989, I was in college, in Arizona, but I drove with some buddies to Los Angeles and saw when the Rolling Stones got back together. They reunited in '89 for the Steel Wheels tour, and they sold out LA Coliseum 4 nights in a row, 110,000 people every night.
Wow.
And Guns N' Roses, were just busting onto the scene, was the opening band for those LA shows. So, I mean, it was just, I was a 19-year-old kid, like, okay, the Rolling Stones, my childhood, cool band, and then Guns N' Roses, the latest, greatest, at that time.
The coolest there is.
Yeah.
So that was 2-1, favorite and best show.
Yeah. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome.
So your love for music, you mentioned when we were getting started, was heavily influencing your branding decisions. I have so many guesses and theories because I love branding, I love creativity and design. But I want to hear from you, like, why? Why do this? Was it just like where I want to be is what, this is the brand I want to have, where I want to work out because I love rock and roll or whatever it is. Let me hear.
Yeah. So again, I played live music in my teens and 20s, and then had a family and career, and then I left that behind. But I didn't want to be Michael Jordan or baseball player or something. I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen when I was growing up, and so I go into pharma, and I'm wearing suits every day. It's very buttoned down. Pharma is a really structured environment. You don't step out of line in pharma, and it kind of went against my rock and roll attitude. So I had to kind of, I had to closet that.
Did you have like a secret tattoo you'd sometimes roll up your sleeve a little bit?
Exactly. Like it'd be funny because every once in a while we'd have these national like President's Club getaways or whatever, for the top performer. And as a leader, I would attend all those. And every so often, every couple of years, I would jump up and jam a couple songs with the band. They would have a band like at the awards ceremony, and it never failed. I'd get off stage and people look at me, what? Who are you? Like, that's not. Where's the buttoned up version of you that we're used to? So when I decided I'm going to leave pharma and I want to create this, kind of happened fortuitously. I was taking mixed martial arts, which I'm a huge fan of, but I was training just for fitness. And by training, I mean, I was getting the hell beat out of me by 20-year-olds and licking my wounds. I was in my mid 40s, but my son wanted to learn how to box. I called around, found the best boxing instructor I could for him to get him private lessons. And I ended up talking with this guy that owned these 2 boxing for fitness studios and told him I was thinking about leaving my corporate career and starting a gym franchise. And he's like, well, I'm looking to franchise this business. And I've just started looking into that. So, very fortuitous, but it's also, preparation, meeting opportunity is luck. And so I got lucky, but I was also prepared and I was looking for opportunities. And so he didn't have a lot of marketing chops or skills, and self-admittedly didn't, but damn, he had a great product. And I had taken some classes at a couple of his studios, and I loved the workout. It was hard as heck, but really fun, but just didn't have the full wrapper around it. By wrapper, I mean, the marketing, the branding.
So this wasn't RockBox. This was something else.
No,
Got it.
No, it was something else. It was called something else. So the workout has never changed. He created this great format, and always no 2 workouts are ever the same. And it's just a really fun, engaging workout. So we've kept that core product, but everything around it and the branding we have color adaptive lighting, and it's more like a nightclub feel, but
Awesome.
yeah, no hangover, no barbell though. So you go and you have a really good time. You sweat, but no hangover. So when we were putting this brand together, and first we put a business partnership together, and then I said, okay, are you open to, changing the name of your business? It was called something else. It's called Fast Fit Boxing. And he said, yeah, I'm not married to the name. I am married to the woman who thought of the name. So you're going to have to talk to my wife.
This is a be sensitive.
Yeah.
So many creative decisions have been come down to spousal approval also in life. Like this is
Yep. So I talked to her and she understood the big vision. So first two hires that we made. So I funded this venture. He brought all of his expertise. I brought some capital and we got together, 50-50 to do this. And then I built the first flagship standalone RockBox studio that was fully branded and built from the ground up as a RockBox. But our first two hires were marketing consultants, one on the West Coast and one in Charlotte that I'd worked with before. Because if you get the brand right, I know everybody listening to this podcast specifically will know this, but if you get the brand right from the beginning, then it saves you a whole bunch of time and money later because you're going to have to fix it.
totally. Yeah.
Sooner or later, you're going to have to fix it. So spend the money, the time, the research, the due diligence, the market studies, do all of that up front. And to your point, I didn't have a giant budget. So with Google and just, internet access, I was able to do a lot of that market research that I would have outsourced and paid somebody to do. I did branding studies and a brand plot, if you will, of all the different offerings in the marketplace on my own that I would have paid somebody else to do. So yeah, you're right. I knew what the playbook was, but I wasn't going to go to Madison Avenue and cut that check. So
Now, it sounded like you had the name already as you were going to market with this, or was this in developing the new name and the brand you were doing the research? What order?
doing the research before we came up with the name.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. So and the story behind the story is I did a bunch. I didn't just go in like, hey, let's give this a shot and I'm going to quit my job. Like I did a bunch of due diligence and research before I said, okay, I'm giving notice and going to have a nice transition out and I'm going all in on this. But I definitely had done a lot of work and preparation and built some decks because that was the life I came from. So built some decks so I could understand what I was going to do and have the storyline around that. And so, but we hadn't come up with a name. I loved and how Rockbox came together as a feeling, as an experience when you go to take the workout is, everybody knows what it's like to go. If you haven't gone to like a group fitness class, no matter what the brand is, it's just a better, more engaging community feel. And you work harder. Because the person next to you on the left and right, they're working hard. So you work harder. And it's a lot less boring and isolating than, working out with your headphones and 3 sets of 10. So you have that. And then I wanted to pair that with the same feeling that I think a lot of your listeners, I'm sure, can relate to, where, you know, before that live band, whoever your favorite band is about to headline and the lights go down and you get those butterflies in your stomach and you're just like, it's about to pop off, man. It's about to pop off. I can't wait. And then it's just an amazing time for 90 minutes and, or 2 hours. And then when you're walking out to your car in the parking lot, nobody says, I wish I would have stayed in tonight instead of seeing Aerosmith headline.
You're right.
Said no one ever, right? So I want that same feeling to happen on the hour, every hour. And so that's how we created the Rockbox experience with curated playlists, and the instructor is more like a lead singer, and the entertainer, and we've got color adaptive lighting that changes with the music. So it makes working out so much more fun, not boring, and it's kind of addictive because it's like a dopamine hit after a dopamine hit. And it's that rock and roll feeling coming together with working out.
I mean, I remember my first Soul Cycle class in LA. They'd expanded from New York City, and I'd done group fitness before. Actually, my entire fitness journey was kickstarted by Orange Theory. That was like the first thing I ever did. And eventually I felt like amazing because I was crushing like retirees on the things, and I thought of awesome. But it taught me exactly what you said, was like, this could be fun. This could be challenging. You don't have to just be training by yourself, which was really the mindset that I had learned before. But I remember going to Soul Cycle, and that, I wouldn't say was the first brand to have this more energetic environment. It was the first one that I attended. And since then, I think what is amazing about the fitness experience, and you guys are just riding on this wave, is that people have most certainly wanted, just as much as they want fitness outcomes, is they want to enjoy it. They want to be connected. They want to find that community. And so there's versions of that for everyone, right? In every form of it. But it's something that is really interesting because going back to the brand, and this is something that you knew professionally and intuitively going into your first brand with Rockbox, is B2C purchasing decisions are usually made in a split second. So it's like, do I want this or not? Am I going to remember this or not? And it's why all of the advertising things out there exist so that we remember the brand when it's time to make the decision. But ultimately, this strategy of having a good brand that people can connect to and remember and refer, that's always been like my preach, pulpit to preach on for any brand is like any brand should be cool and engaging and build a community, even if you're selling like network security software. A friend of mine he does procurement for VoIP systems. Like, and he helps you get technology solutions for your digital phone. And he's going to kill me because he does other stuff. His name's Tech Gopher. Shout out to you, Nick. But his is like, he's the coolest tech procurement brand in the United States. And you know what he does? That's so crazy. Takes people out to happy hour and hangs out with his potential clients. So like what's bonkers for you, the competition is fierce and there's so many brands and there's so many competing messages. But many of the listeners are not in really highly competitive industries, or they are, but they're not as creative industries. And so like that's always something that I push on people is like everything that you had to do to survive and even make it, people should be doing in any space because it gives them that creative advantage that truly, like you said, is like what can propel you and just make or break your business or prevent a lot of heartbreak down the road.
Yeah. And if a listener right now has a business or is running a department in a less competitive environment, just check your watch in an hour because it'll get more competitive. If you can make money, people are going to line up to steal your lunch money because that's capitalism. And it's a beautiful model because it forces as a market leader to get better. And if we don't, we get surpassed. And so I would triple down on what you just said that even if you're in a less competitive market, now is the time to be even more diligent in how you separate yourself from whatever competition you may have because the competitors are coming. Like just know whatever you're doing, if you're making money, if it's a good market, it's a growing market, they're coming.
Absolutely.
And when the first one shows up, that just means the second, third, fourth are right behind them. And if you can separate, you have a duty, a fiduciary duty to your company, to yourself, to separate yourself as much as you can to get as big a lead. Because if you get a huge lead, it's going to be a lot harder for them to ever catch up.
Absolutely. And there's no greater lead than radical commitment and fans of your brand because they carry you and push you. I could only imagine, let's go to COVID for you. I haven't talked to a lot of fitness brands during this time, but I could only imagine that your community and the people that you had made that brand connection with and helped and pushed on them and changed their lives were pretty essential during this season of life. What was that like when you were seeing everything that you were working towards just change in a blink of an eye?
Yep. Not a fun time to own a group fitness franchise network.
Where people are breathing heavily close to each other.
Yes. It's but I'm really proud. And I've got a stat here I think will blow your mind as far as speaking to raving fans. So we closed down 2 days prior to the government mandated shutdown. I think we closed down on the 16th, and on the 18th, it was like everybody's got to shut down right around that date. And I vividly remember where I was. And, it was we manage our business with our values. And one of our values is trust and our members and our staff. And they're all trusting us to make the right decision, which was to close until we got this figured out. Now, remember, we were supposed to close for 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? 2 weeks turned into months and months. But within 72 hours of closing, and then we sent a message out to every member, across the nation. Of course, we had an all call with the franchisees, but within 72 hours, we had built an online portal that had custom nutrition plans, meal guides, recipe guides. We had goal setting sheets. We had workouts that if you didn't have any gym equipment at home, you could do. If you did have some gym equipment, we had separate workouts that a little more robust. We hosted Facebook Live workouts so that our members could do it from home. We had Zoom workouts from the studios, like all around the nation. They would have their own workouts to their members. And that first month that we were closed, 84% of the members across the nation continued to pay full dues, even though they couldn't come to the studio, because they supported the brand and they didn't want the brand or their local studio, which is how they know the brand, to get hurt. And I vividly remember which I'm so proud of that statistic. And of course, it fell off. The second month, it was lower, and the third month, it was a little lower. But and the brand came back stronger. We didn't have a single location closed permanently because of COVID. I'm very proud of that. But the thing that I'll never forget is each studio has a private Facebook group. In the studio that I owned, I think I owned one or two. I know I owned one, but I may have owned a second one at that same time. But I remember in one of them, somebody had posted, "Guys, let's keep supporting our favorite local small business. Don't give up. Stay true," or say, hold the line or something. Like literally almost shaming her other members to pay, I didn't have to say a word because the members were such raving fans. But it's right. It's what you said. You have to create a brand that your customers then become your biggest salespeople, your biggest advocate. But yeah, COVID, not fun. Never want to do that again. And I will tell you, I had a franchisee call me. They're no longer on a network, so I can say they called me and they're like, "Hey, what is the SOP for a pandemic?" I'm like, "Dude."
And this is before Chat GPT. You could just
Yeah.
figure it out. So
I mean, I'm like, General Electric, IBM, Amazon, they don't know. We're all making this up. We are all making this up as we go. We have one now, but nobody had one back then.
So I want to kind of just continue on the story. We definitely don't have enough time to cover, last 7, 8 years that you've been on this journey. But more recently, or not most recently, but in more recent years, I saw that you are really continuing to think strategically with branding and creativity. You've launched 2 other brands with Beam Light and Leverage Nutrition. All of these are super synergetic, obviously, with wellness and cross promotion with the nutrition company. Was this, again, your master MBA business plan by design from when you left pharma and you knew that you're going to start building this more umbrella portfolio of companies? Or is this something where you're, again, just waking up one day and being like, I can do more. I can do more. I want to achieve. I see this opportunity. How did those things come about?
Man, I would love to tell you that, yeah, I have a whole master black book plan and I'm on year number 8 of this. Hell no. And I think if most entrepreneurs are honest with you, they're going to tell you that, you have to keep your knees bent and stay nimble. Now, do I have plans for RockBox? 100%. Do I have plans for Beam Light Sauna and what we're doing here in this team? 100%. But Beam Light Sauna, honestly, the quick story on that is my partner that was in RockBox with me, they sold their house while they were waiting for their new one to be built. His wife, because they had an infrared sauna in their house, his wife looked for a local infrared sauna studio, could only find one. Met the owner and said, "Is this a franchise?" She's like, "No." She's like, "Well, it should be because this is a great concept." Introduced Cynthia, who's now my business partner in Beam Light Sauna, to Steve, my other business partner, and then introduced her to me. And then we started doing some marketing tests on her business, just running. I paid for the traffic and just like, let me see if this is a promotionally responsive business, see if I can help.
Do people even know what's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I'll tell you what we found. What we found is that the spa industry, the day spa, the sauna, they are like years behind the fitness industry on how they market and how assertive they are in their marketing and their customer acquisition approach. So we just picked up a fitness marketing model and set it on top of like a day spa model, and we're crushing it because day spas don't know that you're supposed to call a lead within 5 minutes. They don't know that you're supposed to call a lead 3 times a day until they say go to hell, or okay, I'll be there tomorrow. Like, in fitness, we have to hustle, man. We have to hustle to earn that. And so we've just applied that same business model to Beam Light Sauna. And the experience is very upscale and it's more of a women-centric brand. It's just a gorgeous brand. The branding around that one, again, we spent about 14 months on that before we brought it out of the barn.
I love it.
But it's a beautiful brand. But I'll tell you, like, I didn't know a damn thing about infrared sauna. I knew what a sauna was, but I didn't know what an infrared sauna was. I didn't know what red light therapy was, but I started getting into it, did the research, started doing the deep dives, listening to Rogan and Huberman and whatnot. And all of a sudden I start seeing it everywhere, of course, because it's like a new vocabulary word. You start hearing it everywhere.
Oh, and
And
there's historic
yeah,
scientific data from the Nordic regions and life expectancy. I mean, this is infrared and sauna is one of the most scientifically validated, wellness things out there with it, aside from probably fitness.
yeah. I mean, really, it's self-care, right? And we need more of that in our country. We don't need sick care. We need self-care so that you don't get sick. And so I looked at the business opportunity, put a deal together with Cynthia, and we have another business partner as well, and launched this brand. I built a studio, my own dollars, my own checking account to make sure that we could prove the concept a second time, which we did. And I crushed it with that studio and still own that studio. And it became obvious this is going to be a great winning brand, and it is. We've awarded, I think, 300 licenses now in about 2 years. Yeah, it's nuts. We'll have 50 units open by the end of this year. We'll have probably 150 stores open by the end of next year in 2025. So it's just taken off like a rocket. But man, I'd love to tell you it was all part of the master plan. But what I will tell you is anybody listening, they need always keep that opportunist hat on. Like, you have to be an opportunist. Like, there's a lot of things have come across my desk and I'm like, no. And I've been to the altar with a couple companies that I wanted to acquire and then just realized at the altar, I threw off the veil and ran out of the church. Like, this, it's just, there's something not right here. And I just don't think this is going to integrate well with other brands. So I'm always looking, always talking to smaller brands that are owned and looking and are for sale, but it has to be right. But when it's right, and I guess the message here is when it's right, then you have to go you push the gas pedal, through the floor.
And I think that happens with so many parts of kind of your story here,
Yeah.
It was right after that Barcelona moment to move because you had 2.5 decades of experience to test something new.
Yep.
It was right to go all in on this guy's fitness studio because you experienced it and you had results and you loved it. And then taking that and repeating it. I don't know when the nutrition brand, sorry, I'm blanking on it here.
Yeah. Leverage nutrition. Yeah.
Leverage nutrition. I don't know on the timeline when this came back in, but I want to point out it's kind of a full circle moment for you in your life to go from pharmaceutical, put this in your body, to now I am asking you to put something else in your body. And that's my reputation on the line inside of this. So I want to, one, how did you validate the quality and product and manufacturing of this brand? Because there's, as you know, and you and I think are in similar circles of fitness, there's a lot of not so great things that people try to market and sell made of horrible materials. And then, like, how does that make you feel now realizing you're kind of back to where you started, just from a completely different angle and page?
Yeah. We launched that brand in 2019 because it made sense for our RockBox franchisee owners so that they could have additional incremental revenue and we could help our members achieve their goals faster instead of them, like you said, going on the internet or going to even GNC and getting stuff that may not be of the highest quality. But it is funny when we sat down, there was three of us, three partners at the time. And I said, hey, we need to start a supplement line. It makes total sense. It needs to be proprietary so that it can't be, bought off Amazon or something, because then the RockBox owners won't get the repeat business. And it has to be the highest quality because it is our reputation. And trust, again, is one of our values. Well, it's funny because they said, well, how do we do that? I'm like, guys, okay, this one I got. Like, this I can do in my
like, let me just, you show up in a suit the next day, like, it's time to sell some things.
Hold my beer. I know how to do this one. And so what I did is I reached back out to my network in pharma, and there's a contract manufacturer that we work with that makes our supplements. It's an FDA approved and inspected facility. So supplements, because you said it, they're not FDA regulated, which means you could have a bathtub in New Jersey and you're qualified to make supplements. Scary, but true. And you have no idea what's, if what's on the label is actually in the bottle, and even worse, maybe stuff that's not on the labels in the bottle. And so we, have worked with this partner for 5 years now, and I worked with them previously. So I had a relationship. And long story short, in the pharma world, if you get inspected randomly every 2 years by the FDA, they show up whenever they want to and they stay as long as they want to. And if you get a demerit, let's call it, it's called a 483 observation. And then you have a certain amount of time to cure that and find the root cause analysis and fix your quality systems. The place where we go, and our partner, our manufacturing partner for leverage nutrition products, in the last 8 years have not had a single FDA 483 observation, which means basically an inspector came in and couldn't find one thing to write up in his or her journal, because that's the kind of facility. So they test raw materials, they test finished goods for potency, purity. What's on the label is in the bottle. What's not on the label is not in the bottle. But that gets back to having good partners, because you can't do all that stuff yourself. You cannot do everything yourself. And the partner you pick, you've talked about reputation a lot on this podcast. The partner you pick is you. They represent you. So make sure you're picking your partners really, really well, because that is your reputation. Even if they screw it up, it's your reputation.
Well, and what a creative strategy for you to really look at how you can provide more value levers for the people who represent your brand, giving them quality product. Cause we've all seen the franchise shop where it's like, here's some crappy t-shirt that you're supposed to sell and make some extra coin. And you guys are going out of your way to find that product and to really invest it. Two more questions. One super quick one. If you happen to have your local RockBox franchise, the closest one's in San Diego, and you have no way to access these supplements, and you're just in Arizona talking to the founder and CEO of the brand, would there be any way to get some direct ship to Scottsdale? Because,
I'm sure we can make that happen.
okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. You'll start to unofficially be sponsoring the podcast here.
I love it.
Last question, and this is where's your creative brain going next? What can you talk about of what you're seeing and the vision for Thrive Brands, which is your holding company, and where you're headed out? Or is the answer, I don't know, but I'm keeping my options open?
I love it. And that's a great final question. I will share with you that I was at an offsite with my team a year and a half ago, December, a year and a half ago. And they said, Roger, get out of the weeds and get on stages, get on social media, get on podcasts, and get out there and represent our brands. That's where you add the most value, and get out of our hair, quite frankly, they were saying too.
You got the message.
Yeah. Like, I got the message. I got the message.
I'm also being told to do a podcast too, so I don't know whether
Yeah, exactly. It's go build them a podcast room and that'll distract them.
yeah.
So I literally started Thrive More with Roger Martin, this podcast. I'm 53 years old, had never done this. I had never made a social media post, a camera kind of social media post. I'd made tons of ads and ran out, but like not a personal thing. I mean, I always thought a personal brand was for like a fashion person or a trainer or something. But what I realized is I should have listened to Gary Vee back in 2013 when I saw his YouTube video when he said, just make a post and keep posting and don't stop. And I heard that in 2013. And like a bonehead, I was like, that's for other people. And finally, at 53, I picked up my phone. I guess I was 52 actually when I picked up my phone. And I hadn't even shaved. I have a pretty gray beard when it comes in it. I look like 100 years old. But I had a lot of stubble, and I picked up my phone and I had no idea what I was going to say to it. And I said, a lot of people are asking me what I think the economy is going to do, probably because of all this gray in my beard. Well, I can tell you, I don't have a clue. And these pundits on TV, they don't have a clue either. And I just go off and I give this little diatribe on betting on yourself and put it up on LinkedIn. First time I've ever made a post on LinkedIn. And it got like 3,000 or 4,000 views.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, this works. Like, this actually works. And so I have consistently been making content. And at first I felt I really felt like a narcissist and, just like, oh my God, this is just, I feel like a Kardashian. But then I realized, you can consume content or you can make content. And consuming content is not going to add a ton to your life. I mean, it can be a little entertaining and, a way to numb out some, but it's the people who create content that can then decide where their destiny goes. And so to answer your question, podcast, I published a book in January. I've got 5 companies now, all this and building this personal brand, and I'll be doing some speaking also. I don't know where it's going, but everything I'm doing on my socials and all of this personal branding that I'm doing, I am listening to Gary Vee, but I'm taking it 10x. So, he's like jab, 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 right hook. I'm just going to keep jabbing until my arm falls off because I'm not sure what that right hook is.
With lots of roundhouse kicks too.
With lots of, exactly, with a spinning back kick. But honestly, I don't know, but I do know that if I keep doing this and I don't quit, because everybody quits. Everybody it didn't work. Well, how long did you do it? Well, I made 20 episodes. You're just getting warmed up. I mean, you're not even close. You've got to put in the hour, the time, the years, the decades. I just know that if I keep doing this, the opportunities will arise, and I need to be an opportunist. And the next time I meet another Cynthia, another opportunity, we have a mutual friend, Mike Arcee, who, I have opportunities with. He's just a great dude. Like, when you keep your options open and keep jabbing without an ask, no ask, don't, hey, I'll do this if you do this for me, just keep giving. Then there'll be a time when you're going to ask. And, the old saying, what is the longer the runway, the bigger the ask. And man, I'm paving the longest runway I can so that when I make that ask of my audience of whatever, like, I have delivered so much value that it's a no-brainer for them.
I love it.
And yeah, I just don't know when that's coming. Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well, look, if you're listening and you want to find out about Roger's brands, he has a lot of them. His book, we'll link to that and everything else that he's been working on. You can go to jarofgenius.com. Roger, what's the number one platform you think is the most, the one you want people to go to? You got to pick one.
Sure.
Was it going to be, you're going to be on Snapchat? Is that your thing or is it something else?
So I've got a killer MySpace page. It's outstanding. No, so they can find me at Real Roger Martin, Roger, on all the socials. LinkedIn, because I am a business person, I tend to favor. And also, a little tidbit for the listeners, only 1% of LinkedIn users create content. 1%.
Wow.
So it's very easy to stand out on that platform. And it's funny, this is the third time I've referenced Gary Vee, and I haven't talked about that guy in 5 months, but I saw a post where he made it where he's like, LinkedIn is the new Facebook from was Facebook in 2009, 2010. Like, it is the new place, when it was kind of the business button down nerdville.
Oh, I see so much more social like content on LinkedIn now. And it's good too. It's not flooded with coachy spammers or, ridiculous ads and stuff. So, well, Roger, I super appreciate your time and your story, from pharma to fitness and everything in between. And again, for everyone who wants to catch up on not just this episode, but other episodes, go to jarofgenius.com to subscribe and see the show notes. Roger, best of luck. And let's connect the next time you're through Arizona.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Jar of Genius, sponsored by Design Pickle. To learn more about the topics discussed, get access to any of the links mentioned, and submit ideas for future seasons, head over to jarofgenius.com. Now, if you enjoyed the show, you know the drill. A solid rating on your favorite podcast platform helps others find what we are creating and join the conversation. We'll see you next time, and never forget, creativity is your secret strategic weapon.